Hello guys, I am back from another video, and today we're talking about what if Deku never got one for all. So in the last video we talked about how, during a meeting about the current state of the Hero Society, or more specifically the Hero Society in Japan, well, they've been talking about something about planning on doing one more, and I mean one more thing to basically tie it all together. Killing All Might, as Izuku is being teased about, having a literal harem of 3 girls, specifically Mei Hatsume, not really Oda Nobunaga, but still, aka Mirko, and finally Mount Lady, as Izuku is starting to revert to his almost timid self once again. As for a certain, Stain over there, Stain is starting to laugh as he's starting to think that he might become a grandpa soon. Or maybe soon enough. Maybe after this series is finally ended. So, after a while of basically just talking, they would be told by Jack the Ripper, the new de facto leader of this group, that she would basically tell everybody that they're gonna be coming back to this meeting, maybe in a 2 weeks. Until 2 weeks, they would go back to the meeting, as they're gonna be planning on a way of killing All Might. So, after Izuku left, he would be going back to training, mostly doing his, daily routine of just training and things like that, as he would be visited by not really both, but all 3 of the girls, aka Mei Hatsume, Mirko, and finally Mount Lady, as all of them would basically notice that he's basically shirtless, as all 3 of them would have different reactions. In this case, Mirko would basically start to nosebleed a little bit. As for, Mount Lady, she would start to drool, but also nosebleed at the same time. And finally, Mei Hatsume would also nosebleed, but she would also faint. Izuku would basically catch her, as all 3 of them, or more specifically 2 of them, both of them, specifically Mirko and Mount Lady, would start to get jealous. So, after basically bringing them in, they would explain that they're planning on just maybe hanging out, but also confess that they want to be their, girlfriend. Or more specifically, Izuku's girlfriend, all 3 of them. Izuku was confused, but also, quite, timid at the time, as they would decide, more specifically, Mirko would decide to maybe have a little bit of hanky-panky. What do I mean by this? Well, let's just say going under the sheets and having some fun, let's just say that at night. So, Mei Hatsume would basically wake up, Izuku would start to run away, as he would get captured and be tied up. As all 3 of them would basically just had a lot of fun at night. But Izuku, it's more instant torture, and let's just say Izuku started becoming he would start to look like Nagito in the morning. Like Nagito after, getting the Renegon. Or was it yeah, at least I think so. And when Izuku woke up and the rest of the girls basically woke up, they would start to confess that they were quite excited about, next time. As the next time, I mean now. Which they would grab a phallic-looking object from one of their purses, as Izuku would go back to his, let's just say, torture sessions, let's just say that. So, yeah. So, that is basically what happened last episode. And so, let's talk about what happens next. So, after the 2 weeks were up, everybody started going back to the meeting place. So, Jack the Ripper would say that apparently the information about UA is pretty substantial. And apparently that they're preparing to go to the League of Villain Space to basically fight off All for One, because this is apparently their final assault. Izuku would hear this as he would say this. So, who's getting dibs on All Might's dead body? As Izuku would say this with a, lazy tone. As one of them would say this, specifically Darius. That would be fun. But I'm going to be going to kill that Hawk guy. As he would say this. You mean Hawks, the number 2 hero? Or at least the new one? As he would say this. Yes, I heard that he's quite annoying. and I heard that he sort of caused the death of a family, specifically one family that was quirkless, and I want to kill him for that reason. As you would say this, your dibs, I'm going for All Might, and my damn sister. As he would say this, specifically, wait for a second, as Miracle would say this, oh really? Then, I'm gonna be going for my old friend. As he would say this, your old friend? As she would say this, yes, her name is Ryuko, also known as the Dragon Hero. You've probably heard of her. As he would say this, Dragon Hero. As he would start to remember a little incident back when he was still, working alone with Stain. He would start to remember that one time when he was going through the city, basically killing some fake heroes, he would basically accidentally, slip and basically dropped onto, the face of, a certain dragon hero. Specifically on her, chest melons. She would start to get angry, and noticing that it was, Cucullin, she would try to attack him. After that flashback ends, he would say this. Oh yeah, her. He would start to laugh a little bit, as all of them would basically just look at him weirdly. As one of them would say this, specifically, well, wait for a second, as Darius would say this. Why are you... As he would say this. Oh, it's nothing, I just thought of a stupid memory of mine. Oh, God, I just hope not to see her again. As one of them would say this, specifically, a girl, or more specifically, wait for a second, specifically Jack the Ripper, she would say this. Yeah, and I'm looking forward to basically killing this guy. This guy by the name of... I think his name was Twice. Yeah. I remembered him basically going through a drive-by, and basically killing one of my old and most friendliest of friends. He was killed pretty fast, and I want to get my revenge on him. As Izuku would say this. I see. As one of them specifically, Stain says this. So, what time are we planning this siege? This final assault on the heroes? As she would say this, specifically, Jack the Ripper would say this. Oh, maybe in a few months. And as for you, Stain, as Stain would be looking up at her weirdly, as she would say this. I want to give you something. It was a gift from the Counterforce. Apparently they want to give you something really powerful. But this thing would gladly take away your quirk. But in exchange, it would give you a power similar to ours. As he would say this. Wait, really? As she would say this. Yes. So, will you accept this? And become one of the new chosen of the... As she would give off this weird, almost terrifying smile, almost similar to Secunda from, Jujutsu Kaisen. As she would say this. The Avenger class. As he would basically look at it, as he would say this. Sure. So, after grabbing this weird-looking sword, which this sword almost resembles actually it's a pretty weird-looking sword. It's more like a sword that's basically, made from an antler, but the antler was basically made out of metal and super sharp to the point that it can probably cut through paper like butter. So, after grabbing the sword, his body would start to change. His body would start to almost resemble, typical, how do I say this, typical, huntsman's clothing, as flames would basically appear around his neck, specifically bluish flames, as he seems to be riding on something, as when he looks below him, he seems to be riding on some sort of gigantic-ass wolf, with beaming blue eyes and a rage-fueled scowl. As he would say this, what in the, I feel, as he would start to smile, but knowing that he doesn't have a quirk anymore, he doesn't really care right now, knowing that he has greater abilities and powers, thanks to the, help of Alaya. aka the counterforce, as he would say this power, I never felt anything like this before, as she would say this, being, Jack the Ripper. Well, Alaya told me that this power that you were given is from a phantom heroic spirit, as he would say this, phantom, as he would say this, I meant she, yes. Apparently phantom heroic spirits are apparently heroic spirits that are not normal at all. They're more like a fusion between several minor heroic spirits to become one. In this case, it's a mix of the Headless Horseman. And next is Lobo, at least I think that's the name. Actually, I don't really remember all that much, but apparently it's a wolf that kind of died mysteriously and now wants revenge. On specifically, Huntsman, as he would say this. And what is the third one? As she would say this. Well, it's the Invisible Man. As everybody would just hear this, as Izuku would say this. So you're telling me that he's able to turn, like, invisible or something? As she would say this. Well, I don't know all that much, but I think so. Maybe try. As when, wait for a second. So, Stain would try to think of him, like, start to think that he can become invisible, as when he does, he would somehow basically disappear out of nowhere, as everybody would start to look around saying, wait, where's Stain? As Stain would say this, wait, am I really invisible? As one of them specifically says this, specifically Darius. It seems so, my comrade. It seems that you were given the power of the Avenger, and it's quite a useful ability, in fact. As this large wolf, which apparently was named Lobo, would basically howl, or more specifically, would start to howl at the moon because it was nighttime. As specifically, one of them specifically, Jack the Ripper would say this. So, our meeting is adjourned for now. So, in a few months, we're going to be taking over this country and then the world. And we shall make a world of equality. A world where the quirkless and the quirk users can finally live together. So, we shall leave. As everybody would basically start to leave, including the new member, aka Steen, otherwise known as the Avenger. But he now wants to call himself by a new name, which he was given in his mind from these heroic spirits that are fused together to create this phantom heroic spirit. And apparently, he decided to name himself Hessian Lobo. Or just Hessian. Because, Lobo's the name of the dog, so why not? So, after Izuku leaves, he would go back to his apartment to basically go train for a few months to basically get ready for the final battle. So, a few months have gone by, which Izuku has prepared some pretty powerful runes, including one that he, how do I say this? He's been, making it for just a while. As in a while, I mean a few months. And I mean, these stones, or specifically runes, are pretty, diverse. In this case, this special rune, which he calls a quirk cancelling rune. It's basically in the name. It allows him to basically cancel out the quirk of a quirk user. Meaning, it's basically like, Aizawa's quirk, but in a rune form. As Izuku would say this. So, we're finally ready. Right, guys? As everybody's basically all ready. Everybody is currently outside. Currently, it's nighttime right now. As several of the students from Class 1A, Class 1B, basically the whole, every single hero in UA, or mostly, heroes in training, except for Bakugo, because remember, Bakugo basically killed himself, supposedly. And what do I mean by this? Well, in the last video, or not technically the last video, but still, Izuku basically killed him in cold blood. But thankfully, nobody found out that it was him. So, Izuku would notice the, plane that's basically going by, as Jack the Ripper would say this. My intel told me that the heroes, specifically the heroes in training that are basically being brought to the final battle between All Might and All For One is apparently on a plane, so I'm guessing that must be the plane, right? As Izuku would say this. That's what my informant told me. As she would say this, specifically, wait for a second, as Mei Hatsume would say this. Yeah, that is quite smart, and also quite clever. As Izuku would say this. Whatever. So, what did you make to, I don't know, bring us to that island in the first place? As she would say this. Well, I call it as a large, almost like biplane type design plane would basically just like appear out of nowhere. As she would say this. Meet the Red Baron! As everybody would just be in awe of this, brand new plane that they got. Or more specifically, that Mei Hatsume created. This plane almost resembles a biplane, but more, futuristic, if you can see that. It's more like a mix of, futuristic stuff mixed with, steampunk, where everything is basically just, steamed engine type shit, but it seems to be almost glowing, almost like a mix of, sci-fi and, fantasy a little bit. And the bronze almost coloring to this plane, and the red, wings that are basically holding this thing up. Oh boy, that thing looks pretty nice to ride on. So, as everybody started riding on this, thing, as Queen Europa would basically just, bring out Talos, which Talos is surprisingly pretty fast. So, they would start to ride on the biplane, mostly the ones that are not the rider class, like Queen Europa, as they would start to fly off. Or in this case, for Queen Europa to start, walking off, because Talos is pretty much a big boy, so as they started going towards the, to the sea where, or specifically the, beach where apparently the, island is, they would start to go there. As nobody, and I mean nobody, has ever noticed, the, large-looking, metallic giant, basically, roaming around the fucking city, which is surprising. I mean, it's not really surprising me. I mean, in Fate, they don't really notice the whole, gigantic-ass explosions happening in, the countryside. I mean, it would probably be obvious, but still. So, as everybody would basically start to go towards the island, Queen Europa would basically transform her, Talos Giant into the White Bull. As everybody would basically get out of the Red Baron, as they would start to go towards the main base of All For One. The rest of the heroes would basically arrive as well, basically charging and defeating the rest of the villains, basically fighting them off. Izuku would be in the middle of the, fight, seeing, not really in the middle of the fight, I meant in the sidelines of the fight with the rest of the, Chosen. And as for Stain is basically watching all of this, basically just perched on one of the, stone pillars that are basically just somewhere at least, near them. He would basically stand on one of them, basically just watching the chaos happening, which several of the heroes and villains, Nomus and things like that are basically fighting off, as Izuku would basically grab a room that basically enhances his sight, almost similar to Mei Hatsume's quirk. And also Mei Hatsume would basically bring out goggles that basically act similar to her original quirk, as they would see that a certain green-haired girl, aka Izuku's sister, is basically fighting. Izuku would start to get pissed off, but he doesn't have the heart to basically kill her. Even though he did get mad at her for basically lying to him, he would realize that after knowing that, after getting some information about, All Might, thanks to the help of Mr. Hatsume, apparently his quirk, specifically One For All, is a transfer-based quirk, which after knowing of this, Izuku would basically start to basically less and less, hate her. But he would still have hatred for All Might. So, Izuku no longer has hatred for her sister, but he does have hatred towards All Might. So, he would basically reveal All Might's, biggest secret to everybody, that he was a cheating liar, and also a bastard. But not only that, showing the world that heroes should not have existed. Even quirks. but he wants to make a world that basically just like, quirk users and their quirkless would basically live together. So he would start to think. As one specific person would say this, specifically Mirko. As Mirko would say this, "Hey, Izuku, are you okay?" As Izuku would say this, "Oh, sorry about that, Mirko. I was just thinking." As she would say this, "Thinking about what?" As Izuku would say this, "Well, I had this sister and apparently she's the new wielder of that all-for-one quirk that All Might had." As she would say this, "Oh yeah, I got the file on it already. And I can't believe your own sister even lied to you." As he would say this, "I accepted that fact, so I won't kill her." As everybody would be surprised that Izuku won't kill his own sister for basically lying to his face. As Izuku would say this, "I know she was just lying to basically protect me, and also lied for All Might's sake, but I still feel kind of a bit, angry. But still." He would basically sigh as he would say this, "But I won't forgive All Might, and all of the misdeeds that he had done. I will kill him, including All for One." As he would bring out Guy Bolga, as he would say this, "So, everybody ready?" As everybody is basically ready, as always. As they would jump into the fray. As Stain would basically charge in, basically killing several heroes, mostly the fake ones, which, thanks to his ability to basically just like see the hearts of people's desires and things like that, he's able to basically just like kill mostly the bad ones, and the good ones basically survive. Like, for example, what's her face? Like Jiro, Momo, Mina, and yeah, kind of Kaminari. I mean, kind of, as in slightly. The reason why he's able to have this ability is because he's a part of the Avenger class, which Avengers not only having the ability to basically just like anything that they basically hate basically makes them stronger, but thanks to their ability to hate, they know about love. Let me give an example about this. In Fate, there's a certain, Avenger, which was the first Avenger which was released in the West, aka Edmond Dantes, which, apparently, in the actual story of FGO, apparently he was not always a bad guy. During the end of his story, specifically in the Count of Monte Cristo, he actually became good and stopped hating people, but because most people mostly think of Edmond Dantes as a revenge-fueled maniac, it's sort of basically ingrained into his story, so he basically became that thing every time when he's summoned as an Avenger. Which, oh boy, let's just say that's a pretty interesting idea. So, because of this, Stain, thanks to the powers of Hessian Lobo, he is able to basically see the desires of others, mostly evil and maybe good. So he's able to kill the evil ones and mostly save some of the good ones. So, as for Jack the Ripper, she would start to use her noble phantasm, Maria the Ripper, which allows her to basically create the, pocket dimension, where she basically creates the Whitechapel district, and basically anybody in that vicinity would start to inhale the literal, gas, or more specifically the poisonous gas that is basically in the air, which kills people, but if some of them survive, nobody would survive her attacks, which basically she would go into the shadows of the, in the poisonous fog, and basically start killing all of them in an instant. And as for, Darius, he would start to use his noble phantasm, which allows him to basically summon in a fucking army and ride on his literal mammoth. I'm not even joking. He's able to ride on a gigantic-ass mammoth, or was it an elephant? Actually, yeah, I think it was an elephant or mammoth. So, this mammoth would basically start to crush many of the, villains and many of the villainous heroes. So, when a certain All Might and also All for One basically arrive, they would start to fight, each other. And as for a certain girl, aka, what's her face? Izumi would basically start to fight. She would see that several people basically got into the fray, and they definitely seem weird. They're definitely not a part of the heroes or the villain side, so they seem to be killing both heroes and villains, as Izumi would start to basically run at towards the nearest person that basically is fighting like both heroes and villains, specifically Izuku, as Izuku would basically look towards her, as she would say this, "What are you doing?" As Izuku would basically just like blocks her attack with his sword, as he would say this, "Another stupid damn hero. Well then, I'm not here to kill you, but if you dare go into another rant about being a hero and things like that, I'm about to kill you. So step away. You're in my territory right now." As she would say this, "Why are you killing all of these people? I mean, some of them are villains and some of them are, heroes, but still." As Izuku would say this, "Well, these people are scum. I can see into their hearts. They're nothing more than scum to me. They don't deserve to live. But I will spare you. After all, you never committed a sin in your entire life." As she would say this, "But I won't let you hurt them. I mean, they're my friends." And as Izuku would say this, "Friends? Are you sure about that? I can see into their hearts. They're not good people. They only want is money, suppression of the weak, mostly the quirk users, and wanting control, wanting power and nothing else more. I won't hurt you, sister." As she would say this, "Wait, sister?" As Izuku would basically take off his mask, showing that it's Izuku. As she would say this, "Izuku? Brother? What are you doing?" As Izuku would basically lunge towards her and basically knock her out, basically just like chomping her neck. Not like, basically cutting off her neck, basically just like karate chops her neck and basically knocks her out. Izuku would bring her towards the, little place where they were hiding that one time, which he would basically lay her down on those rocks as he would start to move back into the fray. So, Talos would basically cause a lot of damage, which every single person that basically looked at it are basically terrified knowing that this gigantic-ass killing machine is basically killing everything on sight, mostly the evil ones. As Queen Europa is basically on top of his shoulder or palm or whatever, as she's basically telling Talos to basically kill the evil ones and basically save the good ones. As for a certain Miracle, she would start to use her noble phantasm, as she would scream out, "Activate!" As several guns would basically appear as she would start to float, as she would say this, "Demon Kings, free line formation!" As several guns would basically point at several of the villains and heroes that are basically evil, as they would be shot down in an instant. As for Mei Hatsume, she would start to get surrounded by unsavory types of villains, as they would say this, "Oh ho ho, what a pretty little girl like you doing here. Can't wait to have some fun with you." As they would start to have pervy, almost like disgusting smiles on their faces. As she would bring out her gauntlets, as she would say this, I assure you, misters and misses, I'm not here to have fun." As she would bring out her gauntlet, as a small spear would basically come out of there. Everybody would start to laugh, thinking that this is a weak attack, as she would scream out her noble phantasm's name. As she would scream out, "Oimo Universale!" As a large explosion, made like the size of an atomic bomb, would basically just like instantly appear, as a mushroom cloud would be seen all the way from mainland Japan. They would basically see it, and they would also feel, well, there was no radiation, so thankfully nobody's basically going to like die from radiation poisoning, so thankfully it didn't happen. But everybody else that basically is on the island as well, they would see it and they think, what the hell is that quirk? As they would see right in front of them, specifically All Might and All For One still fighting in a large crater that they basically created from both their quirks basically clashing. A large news helicopter is basically recording all of this as the world is basically just like watching this large scale battle between good versus evil, as a person would basically jump right in front of them, basically about to basically just like, get ready to just like clash fists once again, as this person, Izuku, would basically just like block both their attacks with just his spear, as both of them would basically just be launched back instantly. As Izuku would say this, "So, All Might, the number one worst person imaginable, and you, All for One, the greatest villain ever." As All Might would say this, "Who do you call the worst person ever, you damn kid? And who the hell are you?" As he would say this, "Oh, you probably might have heard of me from the news. Deku me Kukulin." As everybody would just be in fear, knowing that Kukulin is quite a famous person right now. As All Might would say this, "So you must be the famous vigilante. Can't wait to beat you down and bring you to justice." As All for One would say this, "I'm guessing that you're one of his comrades exactly. Or at least, the comrade of that person that I killed back in the..." As he would start to look at him closely, as he would say this, "Back in the training camp." As Izuku would say this, "Yes, my fellow chosen have been killed by you, for one. But I won't let you kill me. And as for you, All Might, you will pay for your crimes. The crimes of killing all of those innocent quirkless. And as for you, All for One, you will die just like the rest of them." As he would bring out a special rune. This rune would basically cancel out all of their quirks. As when he placed the rune up into the sky, as he would basically cut off, not really cut off, more like cause a cut from his wrist all the way to his like his forearm. He would basically spray blood all over the rune. The rune would basically start to glow a malicious red color mixed with a bit of purple, as it would start to spark out, as All Might would start to deflate, as he would say this, What happened to my quirk? Why is it not working?" As All for One would start to almost hyperventilate, as he would say this, "My quirks! What is happening to me?" He would start to almost hyperventilate, almost like he's choking on, his air, or his, how do I say this? His, saliva or something. As Izuku would say this, "Quirk cancelling rune. One of my famous works right now. But it's still unrefined. So, as for both of you, I will show this world how you damn so-called heroes really are." As he would basically tell, Caster, aka Meihatsume, to basically show the evidence. So, she would basically start to use her, rocket boots, which she created during her, time during the, not 2 months, I meant 5 months, I meant like 2 months, of basically just resting. She would basically just bring out the information about All Might's misdeeds to the helicopter that is basically filming all of this. So she would basically request them to basically show it on one of their laptops. She would basically, or more specifically, the news reporter would basically just put the USB in, as she would see all of the misdeeds that All Might did, basically crippling the heroes, the hero society itself, to basically crumble a little bit. Actually, not even a little bit, more like a lot. Thanks to this, nobody has any faith in heroes now. Nobody has no more faith in heroes after learning that All Might was basically causing a lot of trouble. Not only that, during his time in the... wait for a second. During his time when he was first being a hero, apparently he caused all of those incidents to basically look, good to the public. after knowing of this, everybody would basically start booing in their houses, booing in the streets, booing at All Might for all of the misdeeds that he created, and including creating All For One. He was the problem. All Might was the problem. In fact, heroes were the problem. As Izuku would say this, so your hero was a tyrant after all. So, what do you want to do with him? You favorite young or impressionable young minds in this lovely world. As everybody would start to basically just like go onto the website of this, of this specific news program that is basically filming all of this, as they would say, kill All Might, destroy All Might, basically kill him, destroy him, punish that fiend, punish that monster. As they would say, kill All For One, destroy him, just bring him to hell. As when Izuku saw it on his phone, he would say this, well, this is interesting. It seems that all of your former fans, All Might, hate you now. So, prepare to die. As he would basically scream out, now, come forth, Wickerman! As a large man made from, straw and flames would basically come out of the ground. As he would start to, grab All Might and All For One, as they would be put in a large cavity in the chest. All Might and All For One would try to escape, but All For One is basically weakened to the point, thanks to the, quirk cancelling rune, and thanks to All Might basically being weakened to the point that he doesn't have his quirk anymore, he would basically die. All For One and All Might would die. Izumi would see all of this after she woke up, and seeing on the news that All Might was actually the real reason that this world is basically in trouble. And not only that, heroes were actually the plague and the real villains in this story. She would basically go to the ground and basically start crying, saying, I can't believe I actually liked you, heroes. Why did you lie to me? She would start to cry, including the rest of the world. Many of the hero commissions around the world, like for example the hero commission of America, would basically be dissolved, thanks to the help of Izuku Midoriya and his new version of the hero commission, which is similar to the old one, but except without the, covering up of all heroes' records, and basically displaying all of the heroes that are basically just actually good. There's no more fame ranking or things like that, or popularity rankings or things like that in the hero world anymore. It's all about saving humanity itself. No longer having, popularity polls about things like that. And now all about, heroes saving people. Nothing else, nothing more. So, and there's no more pay, so if you want to become a hero, you have to get your own job and not, get paid to be a hero, and do not, and I mean swear to not, how do I say this? Cause any trouble to the world, for an example, stage a incident or something like that. So, because of this, this world has finally been saved. So, this is going to be the end of this series, but before you guys leave, let's go to the epilogue right now about Izuku, shall we? So, Izuku is now, not technically a number one hero, but technically, he's the new leader of the Hero Commissions, or more specifically, Hero Commission of, Japan, or the main branch in this case, because he created it in Japan, so why not call it the main branch? Izuku is now married to Mei Hatsume, Mirko, and finally Mount Lady, gaining 3 children. These children seem to have similar abilities to the hero experience that their, mother, father, things like that, basically wielded back in their prime. And Izuku's mother, knowing that, her son is basically alive, would be a grandma and basically happy that, she had, grandchildren. And as for Stain being basically like a father figure to him, well, he would be like a grandpa, and he would gladly be, a helping hand with the children. Specifically Izuku, Mei Hatsume's, you basically get it. So, and as for a certain girl, aka, Izumi, aka Izuku's sister, is currently the #1 hero of this brand new regime. This world of no more inequality. A world of equality for both quirkless and the quirk user. So, this world is basically in peace, and Alaya is currently just like watching on, basically pretty thankful that this world is no longer imbalanced. So, this is going to be the end of this actual series. So, yeah. So, I hope you liked the video, comment, and subscribe, and I hope to see you guys next time. Bye-bye!